Hey guys, what is up? Hope everyone is doing well. I'm so sorry there wasn't a video on Wednesday. I don't know if anyone actually even noticed that. But yeah, I'm really sorry there wasn't a video. I just have been having a bit of a meh week, if I'm going to be honest. Had a bit of an identity crisis last weekend, dyed my hair a little bit red. So yeah, kind of embracing a little bit of change. Anyway, my struggles to the side. Today's video is all about food fear and acne. This is a really important topic. It is something that comes up quite a lot. I've been through this myself, where you basically create so much fear around a particular food because you're scared that it's going to break you out. So I put out on Instagram asking what are your food fears when it comes to acne, and today I'm going to address them all and debunk basically the myths and try and release a little bit of that stress and fear for you. So if you want to be included in videos like this, and make sure you're following me on Instagram, because that is where I always ask these kind of questions to get involved. Okay, so the two most common ones that came up were gluten and dairy. So let's start off with gluten. When it comes to gluten, there's really kind of two different things that can affect the skin, I find, with gluten. One is either an intolerance or an allergy. So the first question I would ask you is, how does gluten actually make you feel? Put your skin aside for the second. You know, do you get any other symptoms? Like, do you get bloating after eating gluten? Does it give you stomach ache? You know, do you get any other, I don't know, changes in your bowel habits, for example? Is there any other symptoms that accompany with eating gluten? If that is the case, then yes, you might have a bit of an intolerance there. And of course, if you have an intolerance to food, then of course that can affect the skin. And we can see it through the forms of acne, or you might also see little tiny bumps coming up all over the skin. So if I use myself as an example, I'm not actually intolerant to gluten, I'm fine with gluten, but my problem is wheat. And when I used to eat wheat, I used to have tiny little bumps cover all my forehead. And when I actually found out I had an allergy to wheat, then all the bumps disappeared. Now, the second way that gluten can affect the skin is through inflammation. And, you know, with acne, it can be caused from having an inflammatory system, an inflammatory diet, an inflammatory lifestyle, and that can aggravate acne, because acne can be a form of inflammation. Now, what I really want to highlight is that, firstly, if you are not having any secondary symptoms like the bloating, abdominal pain, you know, that's nothing to do with acne whilst eating gluten, then you probably are absolutely fine eating gluten. And instead of creating so much fear around gluten and the inflammation, look at the inflammation in your diet. So things that I would be checking is, look at your fat balance, how much omega-3 to omega-6 you're eating. I'll leave that video linked to give you a bit more help around this. But that is really important when it comes to inflammation inside the body. Look at, you know, the kind of food you're eating. You know, you might be cutting out gluten, but what are you actually filling your plate with? Is it still filled with processed foods? Is it still filled with lots of sugar? Have you got a very high glycemic diet, for example? You know, just because you cut out gluten doesn't mean, one, the diet's healthy or it's suddenly now not inflammatory. Like, check all the other elements. And my biggest advice would just look at your diet as a whole and try and make it more anti-inflammatory, instead of just focusing just on the gluten. And also, to add in now, if you cut out a food, so say you've taken gluten out of your diet because you've heard someone says, you know, that is going to help your acne, but you've, you know, maybe done that for maybe over a year, for example, and you've noticed no difference, gluten's not the issue. If you're thinking, I'm not getting any symptoms, and, you know, going gluten-free hasn't really changed anything, I think I might bring it back into the diet, my advice to you will be, opt for like the whole meal versions, opt for brown versions of anything. Like, don't go and buy white bread, or buy brown bread. You know, rye bread's really lovely. That's a nice option, and that does contain a bit of gluten. And the reason I'm saying this is because you want to go for your complex carbs. So if you want to go have a little bit of Google after this, look up simple carbs versus complex carbs, and try and get complex carbs in your diet and reduce your simple carbs. That is going to help your inflammation levels a lot. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on that topic. I don't think I've done one yet, so I can do that if you would like. Okay, so now let's talk about dairy. Dairy is probably the most common food that people create so much fear around because it's just so well known to be an acne trigger. Now, the thing with dairy, yes, a lot of people do find it does affect the skin, but that does not mean that it's like a one thing fits all that affects everyone's skin. There's lots of different elements that play a role whether dairy is going to affect you or not. One thing can be genetic, so genetically some people can just be more sensitive to it. Number two, obviously, is the intolerant side. So again, just like the gluten, look out if you have any other symptoms, especially with your digestive tract, any changes in bowel movements, how do you feel after eating dairy, etc. Check those things to make sure it's not actually an intolerance thing. But the other thing that I would be looking at is, look at people's blood sugar levels. So are you stable throughout the day? Dairy contains something called insulin growth factor 1, and this is actually seen to increase inflammation. It actually can increase testosterone levels, increase the oiliness of the skin, and also increase hyperkeratinization. So it means that more skin cells are accumulated on the skin, which can lead to clogged pores as well. So all of these things are just a recipe for breakouts, and that is one of the main reasons why dairy can be so problematic for blemish-prone skin. Now, something that's going to help you a lot is balancing your blood sugar levels. I talk about it quite a lot on my channel. I have a whole video on this on balancing blood sugar levels, which I will link, because if there's any video to go watch and take the tips from that video, I really do recommend. So with your blood sugar levels, you have something called insulin, and insulin is something, it's a good thing. We want to release insulin because its role is basically to go and find the glucose that you've consumed from foods and go and store it into things like your muscles and your cells. Now, if we have a diet that's very rich in sugars and just a high glycemic diet, or for example, lots of simple carbohydrates, then we're going to have a lot more glucose in our system, which means that much more insulin needs to be produced. And this basically starts to cause a little bit of an issue, because we start producing so much insulin, which starts us also on a roller coaster, because when you have a really sharp spike, you're going to have a sharp crash. So I always ask the question, how do you feel during the day? Do you ever get like sudden dips of energy or feel tired after eating? If that's the case, look at your blood sugar levels, because that is going to really help you a lot, and it's going to have a big role with your skin, because when we have excess insulin, then what I said about the insulin growth factor 1, you get the same symptoms with that as well, same repercussions basically. So yeah, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I explain this in a lot more detail in my blood sugar video, so go check it out. But yeah, if you are putting so much fear around dairy, then I would also recommend just balancing your blood sugar levels. And once you do that, you might even find that you tolerate dairy better as well. So another little fact on dairy, which might help as well, is different milks have different levels of sugar. So basically, to put this really simply, whole milk is the best milk to get because it still contains a lot of the fat inside, which is a good thing because it actually helps manage your sugar levels. Basically, the more skimmed your milk is, the higher in sugar it is. So if you are sensitive to acne, or you do have issues with your blood sugar levels, it's actually better to go more whole milk than it is to get the skimmed version. Now, something else to throw in the mix here is, I think, with acne, sometimes we just jump to, I've got to just cut it out completely. But actually, for some people, maybe it's just reducing it and just having it a bit more in moderation is all you really need. Because when we have got imbalances in the body, obviously our body's going to be more sensitive to certain foods. So I always say, sometimes it's not actually the food that's the issue, it's the imbalance that is going on, which is causing you to be a bit more sensitive to it because it's tipping you over that threshold. So actually, for some people, just reducing how much they're consuming, so they're not always just constantly, overgoing their threshold, it actually allows the body to have a little bit of a break from that food as well. So for example, if you're always drinking cow's milk, it might be an idea just to switch your milk to plant-based milk and then keep your dairy for like maybe having a really good quality natural yogurt, or having a little bit of cheese here and there. But reducing like your milk consumption, for example, and going more plant-based, that is going to reduce your intake of dairy quite significantly if cow's milk is usually your go-to, and that alone might be the big difference that your body needs. So another one that got sent to me was chocolate. So the main thing about chocolate, I firstly would say probably the dairy thing. Again, it's probably just interfering, possibly either with an imbalance or maybe you do have an intolerance to dairy. So firstly, I would say go and try dark chocolate, get a dairy-free one. That is definitely the first port of call, and see if that helps, because you can still enjoy chocolate. I have chocolate pretty much every single day, but I just have dark chocolate, so it's dairy-free. And then also, I guess it's about moderation. So this is where hormone imbalances can come in a little bit. You know, I can't really give general advice here because everyone's so different, but it has been said that chocolate, so cacao, can increase testosterone levels. So my only thing I would just say is just moderation. You know, if you have like a small square in the evening, that's going to be fine. If you're sitting down, however, and eating a whole bar, then yes, that might be a little bit disturbing for your hormones. So just moderation and go for a dark chocolate. You can still enjoy a bit of chocolate, that's fine. Someone has just written in, they have sugar cravings. So if you have sugar cravings, check out the blood sugar balance video. That is definitely, like 9 times out of 10, that is what will be causing sugar cravings, is imbalance in the blood sugar levels. So go check out that video for all my tips. Okay, so this next topic I really love to talk about because I see this all the time. So this person is saying that almond butter, they love it, but it's been breaking them out. And then someone else said that nuts are also problematic. If you are finding nuts are problematic, then you need to focus on your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. So I said this at the beginning of the video, I've got a video all on this topic. I really recommend checking that video out after this one. So with your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, nuts are really rich in omega-6, by the way. So that is the first thing to know. And when you have really high levels of omega-6 and really low levels of omega-3, you put yourself in an inflammatory state, and that can be really aggravating to the skin and acne. So if you want to balance this back out, what you need to do is reduce your intake of omega-6 but increase your omega-3. This omega-3 is one of the most important things to focus on, because if I'm going to be honest, majority of people that I speak to, they're not getting enough omega-3. And the best sources are oily fish, so things like salmon, herring, mackerel, sardines, anchovies. You really want to be trying to get 2 portions a week, 2 to 3 portions. It's really good, and that will make sure you're meeting your needs. And then the other sources you can get omega-3 from are things like chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, and you also get a bit in walnuts as well. Now, something to stress here is if you're vegan or vegetarian, I recommend probably doing a supplement, because obviously you're not eating fish and it's really hard to meet your needs through those plant-based sources I mentioned. So supplementation would be really beneficial to think about. You can get vegan options out there. But yes, in general, you really want to work on this omega-3 to omega-6 balance. And with omega-6, you know, the best thing to do is just make sure you're just not eating processed foods, all the junk foods and all the kind of cooking oils. That they're the things you want to look out for. So for example, if you're cooking with like vegetable oils like sunflower oil and things like that, switch that to an extra virgin olive oil. So that still does have omega-6 in it, but it's the best oil to cook with because it doesn't go rancid. It's the best at high heat. A lot of people, I always say this, so a lot of people think it's coconut oil. It's not. Extra virgin olive oil is actually better. They have done research on it. So yeah, that is a good swap to make. And obviously with junk foods and processed foods, it's very rich in those very high in omega-6 oils. Reducing those sources is always going to help. And then you want to focus your intake on the healthy sources of omega-6. So, you know, nuts and seeds are absolutely fine. They're really healthy. They're a really good source of protein. They should not be something that you fear. It's, you know, if you're having issues with nuts, look at your omega-3, look at your balance between these fatty acids, and that should make a big difference. And you should still be able to enjoy nuts, but in moderation. You know, in terms of nuts, you know, have nut butters, great. I have nut butter on my breakfast every single morning. But in terms of snacks throughout the day, I just don't snack on nuts. Like, I keep my nuts for my breakfast mainly. So I have nuts like nut butter and I have seeds and stuff in my breakfast. But the rest of the day, I don't really have nuts. Because, you know, if you're going to snack on them as well later in the day and you kind of have, you know, extra portions, then of course over the day, that's going to be quite a lot. So you'll be increasing that omega-6. So that saying's coming out, guys. It's balance and moderation. I really hope today's video was helpful. If you would like another video like this talking about this topic a bit more, then please give this video a thumbs up and also let me know what your personal food fears are in the comments. You know, I really want to help you guys just release this restriction, because it's not a good place to be in. And like I said earlier in the video, sometimes the restrictive mindset can sometimes be more damaging than actually just eating the food. But I always like to stress with my videos, it's all about getting to the root cause and correcting the imbalance, because most of the time when you correct the imbalance, then your body in time will actually be able to tolerate those foods much better in moderation. So it's not a forever thing as well. Just because your body might be reacting, let's say, to dairy right now, it doesn't mean it's going to react to dairy for the rest of your life. I can use myself as an example. When my acne was at its peak, dairy was such a trigger for me. I could not have it. But nowadays, my skin is completely clear and I can have a little bit of dairy here and there and it does not affect me. If you have any other questions, please do let me know. And if you're new to my channel, I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday at 5 p.m. So if you don't want to miss out on future videos, make sure you're subscribed to my channel as well. Anyway, I love you guys so much and I'll see you guys in my next video. Mwah. Bye.